Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith and this is the Talk New London. Coming up in this edition, we speak with Anthony Nolan, State Representative for the 39th District and a current New London police officer. He talks about his work with the NLPD and his views on police training and reform measures, plus why some police have told him to keep quiet. The Talk New London July 3rd, 2020 starts now. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Talk New London, a new podcast from the City of New London. Since protests began in the country about police brutality and racism, the conversation about police reform has touched every corner and state in the nation. Anthony Nolan is a state representative for the 39th District that covers New London. He's also a current serving officer in the New London Police Department. I spoke with him recently via Zoom in a candid conversation about his thoughts on the police and how things need to change, and began by asking him how he separated the two very different roles he has.
That just is a matter of professionalism, making sure that, I am doing things according to the responsibilities of both positions. And I think that's been something that I've been able to do pretty good.
Both jobs must demand a certain amount of time, so how do you split your time between them?
There is it's like having a second job. It's something that you accustom yourself to doing. You deal with them according to what you're going through or what people are going through. It's no different than people having another job.
What are your thoughts on the protests and rallies we've all been watching happening across the US and in New London? And there's also been a lot of youth voices this time, and I know that you're very active in the youth community.
I think the majority of protests that I've seen between Groton, London, and all the way up to New Haven, and I think I went to one in Bridgeport. I was pretty impressed by those things. I think that the kids have now, and when I say kids, I mean people younger than me, have really shown that they know how to get together and make sure that people listen. There's a lot of power in their organizing, and people are finding out, seeing that, and it is just a great thing to see them do and have control.
Let's touch on your role again as a New London police officer. Now, I've spoken to businesses in the city and in particular minority-owned businesses, and they say that sometimes the relationship with the New London police isn't as great as it could be. How do you improve the relationship with minority-owned businesses?
I think for me, it's having open dialogue with those who own minorities that own businesses and trying to get an understanding of how, as a police officer, that I could help them. In conversation as a state rep with many of the local minority businesses, I find that they have appreciation for when officers stop in and make sure that everything's okay, and or if the officer has a concern with things that are going on, and they have that dialogue with the owner, no matter what kind of establishment it is. It closes that gap that there is, that sometimes they don't want the officer in there because sometimes it's not cordial conversation, especially in front of customers. So just in communication with a few businesses, it's officers being cordial when they come in, and until they find out that something actually did go on or they seen something go on, trying to have that professional relationship where when they walk in, they're not disturbing the business atmosphere. And that's the concern that I get from many minority-owned businesses.
Racism is something we're talking about nationally and locally. In your time as a New London police officer, have you ever suffered or been the target of racism within the New London Police Department itself?
One, I really don't think that someone would attempt that because I'm very opinionated when it comes to stuff like that. It's not to say that it doesn't happen. I think that with the little uh, the little groups that we have at the police department and the friendships that they have at the police department that sometimes get in the way of some of the professionalism. I think that that could be construed when someone's always being put in a certain location and other people don't get to be put in that location, or when other people are able to do certain things, be part of certain teams within the department, and some others are not. I think that it's on the line of cutting off that friendship and being professional when it comes to doing those things. So that is one of the problems that I see within the police department. There's that little blue circle that if you don't agree with everything that the person is saying, that you become sometimes an outcast or you get the silent treatment. So that happens a lot.
I want to pick up on a point with you about a recent Facebook Live event you did, in which you said that because you speak out about the police, that you have been visited by police from out of town, and they have said to you, you need to be quiet, you're not helping here. What did you mean by that, and where are these people coming from?
I know where one officer came from, and I believe it was Nolan. I thought another one came from Guilford, but by the time I was able to confirm it, the person understood that he was encroaching on a time period where he was going to be able to be recognized, or something that I didn't have a phone at the time, or it was at Stop and Shop, or it was at Burlington, where people in unions reminded me of being a union member and how I should be careful. I had someone come to the residence while me and the dog were outside and tell me that I was an agitator, that I should be careful, and you should really shut up about what you're saying, as far as making sure the police are going to be having some accountability standards. So there's those out there that think that we're, as a police officer, they think that I'm attacking other police officers by agreeing with some of the things that do go on in our community and country. And I try and tell them, I said, look, none of the things that I know that I suggested, and I suggested about 12 or 13 things to the senators and to the House of Representatives and to the leadership. If you're not doing wrong as a police officer, you don't have nothing to worry about. The police accountability measures that I believe that many of us are talking about are to stop or get rid of those that are acting out and being rogue type officers. I would be foolish to say that it was all officers, because it's not even close to all officers. It's that small percentage. We have a lot of great officers in New London and other towns, but unfortunately, without making these measures, there are still going to be officers out there that are trying to treat people bad.
We keep hearing this term defund the police, and of course this understandably has hit a raw nerve with police departments. When we explore the concept further, it's multifaceted. One thing I want to put to you, and it's my understanding, is that there is no national training standards for police in the US. Do you think that as part of police reform that there should be national standards developed?
Very correct with that. And that's one of the things I hope Connecticut can be the first to do. We have numerous police academies throughout Connecticut, and I don't believe they're all always on the same page as far as training and some of the techniques or some of the de-escalation things that each department are taught. I don't think they're on the same page. I think we would be a great state to lead in coming together and saying this is the standard that we're going to use, or to change the standard if people think that we have a standard, because being a police officer for 20 years, I'm seeing some of the same things come out of the academy that came out of the academy than I was in the academy. And most of that has to do with that sometimes warrior type mentality instead of that peace officer mentality. And that's one of the issues I think we have in our community and in other areas of our state. It's, you know, we're taught, and it's almost like programmed to be militant and to go out like a warrior instead of someone who's going out to create that peace in the community and help people realize that.
Another issue is the militarization of police. It's another hot button issue, especially the 1033 program where police forces acquire military equipment for free. Is it really necessary, do you feel, for the police to have this type of equipment, some of which is quite extreme in nature, like armored vehicles that were built for war zones?
I've always thought, and actually I still think, I don't think that that should be something that municipalities should have. I do believe that that might be something that the state police should have, because we should have a specialized unit for when we have situations that there are people that may have a bigger gun than us at the time, and or multiple people with multiple guns in certain areas. If that ever happened, I believe the training that we get, like hypothetically, school shooting, we'll say, we might not have the big tanker trucks and stuff to shield us from anything coming out of the building, but we have the training to go in the building and eliminate the threat. And I think if we need anything other than that, then I think we should call in the state police in regards to equipment. But there are probably some basic type equipment that people might consider military equipment, like shields that you use to defend yourself from bullets that are coming in, any kind of protective gear that you might have to use when there's things being thrown at you. I mean, I think that's different when it comes to equipment. But big trucks and things that look like the Army, I don't think that that's something that municipalities should have.
Governor Lamont did issue some recent reforms for state police, and some of that will trickle down to local police forces, I'm sure. Do you think he's gone far enough? Because the changes seem to be few and far between, and down to the state police to actually enact themselves. Also, police can still investigate themselves, which has been another issue from the protesters. So do you think an independent body should be set up, and when necessary, they investigate the police instead?
I really think that there should be an independent oversight person, an IG to oversee any kind of inappropriate or misconduct from officers. I don't believe that we have the trust of the community to police our own ourselves. I do disagree when it comes to police policing police. Again, we within our department, within any department, we have a lot of friendships. We have a lot of associations. We have a lot of times when people get different either penalties or discipline than other people. It's not the same across the board for everybody. I don't think that police departments I haven't seen that police departments are able to get the trust of the community in regards to that. So I really believe there should be some outer oversight person or board of people. I would prefer to see it through the state, through each of the layers of government to be participants in it, along with a inspector general that would oversee it to make sure that things are handled appropriately. There's just too much cloud over whether or not police can do that right now.
There are, of course, many good police officers out there who have been and continue to do a good job every day. They're feeling the pressure at the moment because of the protests. How do they change people's attitudes when they're feeling nothing but negativity towards them?
An incredible number of police are great police officers. I agree with you totally on that. But it's the handful that we're worried about. And it's those who tend to put a little extra pressure on our community that is unnecessary, and it goes back to being cordial. It goes back to being a peace officer. For so long, police have been trained under the same training that came from decades ago. Because it came from decades ago, it needs to be updated. It can't be the same. It can't be under the same. Even some of our laws need to be updated in the judicial system, and our fines, and like creating diversionary programs instead of penalties or arrest. I mean, there's a lot of things that police have been doing for so long that hasn't changed. America's moved forward, but policing has not yet. Going out there being a peace officer is the answer. Where when you're going out there, you're not, you want to go out there and build a relationship with the community. I think one of the issues are people are from outside the community. They want to come here to work and they want to leave. They don't want to build that connection all the time. So, hiring people in the community to be officers, having a program where people can come and do ride-alongs, go to an academy so you can learn how police do things and why police do things the way they do. We used to have one of those. I would like to see it on a bigger scale, but we have no connection in the community to let people understand how police departments work. We do have events, don't get me wrong. There are events at the beach, there are events downtown, but we need to educate our community why police do certain things, and then get their input. And maybe they can say, well, what about doing or taking away this and doing this? But if you say that to police officers, their answer usually is, well, they're not a police officer. They don't know what we go through to have to deal with that. And I disagree with that sometimes.
My thanks to Anthony Nolan, and if you want to get in touch with him about New London issues, then visit the website housedems.ct.gov/Nolan or his Facebook page, Nolan4NL. We want you to engage with us and send us your questions and concerns via the City of New London's Facebook page or via email to thetalknewlondonct.org. Don't forget to like, follow and share our Facebook page, which you can find at The Talk New London. That's all from this edition. We'll be back next week. Stay safe and thanks for watching.